The massive space station hung in the void like a metal flower, its 5 arms reaching out toward the stars. Kepler Station had been built in neutral space, far from any world that belonged to the major powers of the galaxy. Here in the cold darkness between systems, representatives from different species could meet without fear of ambush or treachery. Commander Jake Morrison pressed his face against the viewport of the human transport ship as they approached the station. He had seen many impressive structures during his years in the Earth Defense Corps, but Kepler Station was something special. Each of the 5 arms had been designed by a different alien race, creating a strange mix of architectural styles that somehow worked together. First time seeing it? Asked Ambassador Lisa Hayes as she floated over in the low-gravity section of their ship. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Jake had worked with her before, on other diplomatic missions, and he knew she was one of the best negotiators Earth had ever produced. "Yes, ma'am," Jake replied, still looking out at the station. "It's bigger than I expected," Lisa smiled. "Wait until you see the inside. Each section is completely different. The Zephyrians like everything to buzz and hum. The Vortani prefer crystal surfaces that reflect light and patterns. The Nereids need water features everywhere. The Soros want everything to look like a fortress. And the Lumina just want empty spaces where they can float around as energy." Jake nodded. He had studied all 5 races during the long journey from Earth, but reading about them and meeting them face to face would be very different things. The Zephyrians looked like giant insects with wings and multiple arms. The Vortani were living crystals that could change shape and color. The Nereids were aquatic beings who wore water suits when they had to breathe air. The Soros were reptilian warriors who valued strength above all else. And the Lumina were pure energy beings who had evolved beyond physical form. "What are our chances of success?" Jake asked as their ship began docking procedures. Lisa was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, not great. Each race wants something different from these negotiations. The Zephyrians want exclusive trade rights to human technology. The Vortani want access to our manufacturing processes. The Nereids want military protection for their colonies. The Soros want to test our combat capabilities. And the Lumina want to study our consciousness patterns. And what do we want? Peace trade agreements. Maybe some technology sharing. But mostly we want to be accepted as equals in the galactic community." Lisa's voice carried a note of frustration. "The problem is that most of them still see us as newcomers. We've only been in space for a few hundred years while they've been traveling between stars for thousands." The docking clamps engaged with a solid thunk, and Jake felt the slight vibration through the ship's hull. Soon they would be face to face with beings who could crush Earth's military without breaking a sweat. The thought should have been terrifying. But Jake found himself looking forward to the challenge. They gathered their belongings and made their way to the airlock. Jake wore his dress uniform with all his medals and ribbons, while Lisa had chosen a simple but elegant business suit. They wanted to look professional but not threatening. The airlock cycled open, and they stepped into Kepler Station proper. The first thing Jake noticed was the air. It was breathable for humans, but it had a strange metallic taste that made his nose wrinkle. The gravity was also slightly heavier than Earth normal, making each step feel like he was carrying extra weight. Their escort was waiting for them in the main corridor. She was a Nereid named Splash of Silver on Water, though she had told them to call her Silver. She wore a transparent water suit that allowed her to breathe and move normally in the station's atmosphere. Her skin was blue-green and covered in scales that caught the light beautifully. "Welcome to Kepler Station," Silver said in perfect English. The translator device in her suit made her voice sound slightly electronic, but Jake could still hear the warmth in her tone. "I will be your guide during your stay here. The other delegations are already in residence and eager to meet you." As they walked through the station, Jake was amazed by the variety of beings they passed. Zephyrians skittered along the walls on their multiple legs, their wings folding and unfolding as they moved. Vortani rolled or walked in crystalline forms that sparkled with inner light. Soros stomped past in groups, their heavy footsteps echoing off the metal floors. And occasionally, a lumina would drift by as a glowing ball of energy, leaving a trail of light in the air. The Zephyrians arrived. 3 days ago, Silver explained as they made their way toward the diplomatic quarters. Queen Zixtheta brought a full hive delegation. They have been very busy setting up their equipment and testing the station's systems. Testing them for what? Lisa asked. Security weaknesses, I suspect. The Zephyrians are naturally paranoid about meeting in enclosed spaces with other species. They prefer to have multiple escape routes planned. They passed through a section where the walls were covered in crystal formations that pulsed with different colors. The Vortani sector, Silver said. Counselor Prism 7 has been very interested in your arrival. He has been accessing all available data about human physiology and psychology. That's not concerning at all, Jake muttered under his breath. The Soros section was next, and Jake could hear the sound of metal clanging against metal even before they entered. The walls here were made of dark stone and weapon displays lined the corridors. A group of Soros warriors stopped their training to stare at the humans as they passed. Jake could feel their eyes measuring him, judging his physical capabilities. Warlord Kreshtar has been especially vocal about meeting your species, Silver continued. He believes that all diplomatic relations should be based on mutual respect for combat prowess. Great, Lisa said. And the Lumina? They are difficult to predict. They exist on a different level of consciousness than most species. They may be the most supportive of your inclusion in the galactic community, or they may decide that humans are too primitive to bother with. They finally reached the human quarters, which were surprisingly comfortable. The rooms had been designed to Earth standards, with familiar furniture and even some Earth plants growing in hydroponic gardens. Jake set down his bags and looked around appreciatively. The negotiations begin tomorrow morning, Silver said. Each delegation will present their opening positions, and then we will begin the formal discussions. I should warn you that these talks could last for weeks or even months. After Silver left, Jake and Lisa sat down to review their strategy one more time. The weight of Earth's future pressed down on them both. Humanity had reached a crossroads. They could either join the galactic community as equals or remain isolated on the edge of civilized space. Whatever happens, Lisa said, we need to show them that humans deserve respect. Jake nodded, though he suspected that earning that respect might require more than just words. The diplomatic chamber was a marvel of engineering, designed to accommodate all 5 alien species in comfort. Jake Morrison sat beside Ambassador Lisa Hayes at the curved human table, watching as the other delegations took their places around the circular room. The morning light from Kepler Station's artificial sun cast long shadows across the polished floor. Queen Zixtheta led the Zephyrian delegation, her massive insectoid form clicking and buzzing as she settled into position. Her 4 arms moved independently, each one manipulating different controls on her personal console. The other Zephyrians in her group kept their wings folded tight against their backs, a sign of tension that Jake had learned to recognize. Counselor Prism 7 represented the Vortani, his crystalline body shifting between blue and green hues as he processed information. The faceted surface of his form reflected the room's lights in complex patterns that hurt to look at directly. 2 other Vortani flanked him, their crystal bodies humming with low-frequency vibrations. The Nereid delegation was led by Admiral Deep Current Flowing, a being even larger than their guide Silver. His water suit was more elaborate, with multiple chambers and filtration systems that kept him comfortable in the station's atmosphere. The sound of water flowing through his suit created a constant background noise. Warlord Kreshtar dominated the Soros section of the room. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scaled hide bearing the scars of countless battles. His yellow eyes fixed on Jake with undisguised interest, as if he were studying a potential opponent. The other Soros warriors remained standing behind their leader, their hands resting on the hilts of ceremonial weapons. The Lumina delegation was the most unusual. 3 balls of pure energy floated in the air above their designated area, occasionally pulsing with different colors. They had no names that other species could pronounce, so they were simply known as First Light, Second Light, and Third Light. Their forms cast shifting shadows on the walls as they moved. Ambassador Hayes stood to begin the formal proceedings. Honored representatives, we gather today to discuss the future of human-alien relations. Earth seeks to establish peaceful trade agreements and mutual defense pacts with all interested parties. Queen Zixtheta's antennae twitched as she responded. The Zephyrian Hive is willing to consider trade agreements, but we must first establish that humans are worthy partners. Your species is young and untested. Counselor Prism 7's crystal form flashed yellow. The Vortani Collective agrees. We have analyzed human capabilities and find them lacking in several key areas. Your technology is primitive, your social structures are chaotic, and your physical capabilities are inferior to most galactic species. Admiral Deep Current Flowing's water suit bubbled as he spoke. The Nereid Federation is more optimistic about human potential. However, we share concerns about your military effectiveness. Any alliance must be built on mutual strength. The Lumina delegation pulsed in unison before First Light spoke in a voice like wind chimes. The Lumina Collective perceives interesting patterns in human consciousness. However, consciousness alone is insufficient for galactic citizenship. All eyes turned to Warlord Kreshtar as he rose from his seat. His massive form cast a shadow across the human delegation. The Soros Empire has a simple solution to these concerns. According to ancient galactic law, disputes over worthiness can be resolved through ritual combat. We invoke the right of challenge. Lisa's face went pale. Warlord Kreshtar, surely we can resolve our differences through negotiation rather than violence. The Soros leader's laugh was like rocks grinding together. There is no negotiation with weakness. Combat reveals truth. If humans wish to be treated as equals, they must prove their strength. Queen Zixtheta's wings buzzed with agitation. The Zephyrian Hive supports this proposal. Combat trials have settled disputes for millennia. It is traditional and fair. Counselor. Prism 7's form shifted to deep red. The Vortani Collective finds this primitive but acceptable. Let humans demonstrate their capabilities through action rather than words. Admiral Deep Current Flowing suit cycled through several colors. Before he spoke, the Nereid Federation agrees. A combat trial will settle the question of human worthiness once and for all. The Lumina delegation pulsed with what might have been approval. The pattern suggests this path leads to clarity. We consent to the trial. Lisa looked around the room desperately. And if we refuse? Warlord Kreshtar's smile revealed rows of sharp teeth. Then these negotiations are concluded, and humanity remains isolated from the galactic community. The choice is yours. Jake watched the exchange with growing concern. He had hoped the negotiations would proceed peacefully, but it seemed the alien delegates had already made up their minds. They wanted to see what humans were capable of before committing to any agreements. What would this combat trial involve? Lisa asked carefully. The Soros warlord gestured toward a viewing screen that descended from the ceiling. It showed a large circular arena several levels below the diplomatic chamber. Kepler Station includes a ceremonial combat arena for exactly this purpose. Each species would select a champion. The trial would continue until only one champion remained standing. Jake studied the arena on the screen. It was a simple circular space about 50 meters across with a sandy floor and high walls. Viewing galleries surrounded the combat area, allowing spectators to watch safely from above. And weapons? Lisa inquired. Whatever each champion chooses to bring within reason. The combat must be personal, not technological. No energy weapons, no explosives, no orbital bombardment. Kreshtar's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Pure skill against skill. Queen Zixtheta's mandibles clicked together rapidly. The Zephyrian Hive will send our finest warrior. He has never known defeat in over 300 battles. Counselor Prism 7 flashed through several colors. The Vortani Collective will provide a combat crystal optimized for maximum lethality. Your champion will face perfected efficiency. Admiral Deep Current Flowing Suit hissed as pressure changed. The Nereid Federation offers our greatest depth fighter. He has crushed the bones of creatures from a dozen worlds. The Lumina delegation pulsed ominously. The Lumina Collective will manifest a warrior form capable of devastating energy manipulation. Your champion will face the power of pure thought. All attention focused on the Soros warlord as he stood to his full height. The Soros Empire brings our ultimate weapon, an Alpha Kreshwan captured from the death world of Soros Prime. It has killed more beings than any creature in known space. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had read about Alpha Kreshwans in the military briefings. They were apex predators that stood 12 feet tall, with claws that could slice through steel and jaws powerful enough to crush bone. One had once killed an entire Vortani research team before being contained. Lisa was quiet for a long moment, weighing their options. The fate of humanity's future in the galaxy hung in the balance. Finally, she spoke. The human delegation accepts the challenge. We will select our champion and prepare for combat. The alien delegates exchanged glances that might have been surprise or amusement. They had expected humans to refuse or attempt further negotiation. Excellent, Warlord Kreshtar rumbled. The trial will begin tomorrow at midday. May the strongest species prevail. As the meeting adjourned, Jake caught Lisa's arm. Ambassador, who exactly are we going to send into that arena? Lisa looked at him with tired eyes. I was hoping you might volunteer, Commander. You're the only military officer in our delegation. Jake nodded slowly, though his stomach was churning. Tomorrow he would face creatures that had been bred for killing, beings that possessed natural weapons and superhuman strength. He was just a human with nothing but his training and determination to keep him alive, but sometimes that was enough. The observation deck overlooked the arena like a theater balcony, its transparent aluminum windows providing a perfect view of the combat space below. Jake Morrison stood at the railing, looking down at the sandy floor where he would soon face creatures that had been born to kill. The arena seemed smaller from up here, though he knew it was large enough for the massive beings that would be fighting. Ambassador Lisa Hayes stood beside him, her face tight with worry. You don't have to do this, Jake. We could still try to negotiate our way out of this situation. Jake shook his head. We both know that's not an option. They've made up their minds. If we back down now, Earth will never get another chance at galactic membership. Around them, the alien delegations were taking their seats in the viewing galleries. Each species had claimed a section of the observation deck, creating distinct zones of different colors and atmospheres. The Zephyrians buzzed and clicked among themselves, their wings creating a constant rustling sound. The Vortani crystals reflected the arena's lights in complex patterns that made Jake's eyes water. The Nereids had brought portable water tanks that bubbled and gurgled as they moved. The Soros warriors sat in rigid formation, their yellow eyes fixed on the arena below. The Lumina floated in perfect silence, their energy forms pulsing with anticipation. The other champions have already been brought to the holding areas, Lisa said quietly. The Zephyrian warriors called Razor Wing Death. The Vortani sent something called a Combat Prism. The Nereid champion is named Crushing Depths. The Lumina created a warrior form they call Pure Destruction. Jake nodded, though his attention was focused on the far end of the arena where a massive cage was being wheeled into position. Even from this distance he could see the Alpha Kreshwan pacing inside its prison. The creature was enormous, standing 12 feet tall even when not fully upright. Its black scales gleamed under the arena lights, and its claws left gouges in the metal floor of its cage. That thing has killed over 200 beings in combat, Lisa continued. It's never been defeated, never even been seriously injured. The Soros capture them from death worlds where they're the apex predator of entire continents. The Alpha Kreshwan suddenly threw itself against the bars of its cage, producing a sound like thunder. The entire observation deck shook slightly, and Jake heard several alien delegates make sounds of surprise or fear. The creature's roar echoed through the arena, a sound that seemed to come from the deepest nightmares of every species present. Warlord Kreshtar stood up in the Soros section, his massive form casting a shadow across the other viewers. Behold, the ultimate predator. This Alpha Kreshwan has devoured the champions of 6 species. It knows no fear, feels no pain, and shows no mercy. It is death incarnate. Queen Zixtheta's antennae twitched nervously. Perhaps we should reconsider the wisdom of this trial. That creature appears to be beyond the control of any being. Counselor Prism 7's crystal form flashed red. The Vortani Collective calculates a 97% probability that the Alpha Kreshwan will be the sole survivor of this combat. The other champions are formidable, but none possess the pure killing instinct of a Deathworld apex predator. Admiral Deep Current Flowing's water suit cycled through several colors as he spoke. The Nereid Federation agrees. Our champion Crushing Depths has destroyed many enemies, but this creature is on a different level entirely. The Lumina delegation pulsed with what might have been concern. The patterns suggest overwhelming violence. Perhaps the humans should withdraw while survival remains possible. Jake looked around at the alien delegates and realized something that chilled him to the bone. They weren't just expecting him to lose, they were expecting him to die horribly. In their minds, this wasn't a contest between equals. It was an execution disguised as a trial. "Commander Morrison," called a voice from below. Jake looked down to see Silver, their Nereid guide, standing at the arena entrance. "It is time to prepare for combat. You must choose your equipment and enter the preparation chamber." Jake turned to Lisa one last time. "If I don't make it back, tell Earth that we tried. Tell them that humanity isn't ready to give up, even when the odds are impossible." Lisa gripped his arm. "You're going to survive this, Jake. I don't know how, but you are. Humans are tougher than these aliens think." Jake made his way down to the arena level, where a preparation chamber had been set up with various weapons and armor pieces. The equipment came from all 5 alien species, allowing each champion to choose whatever they felt would give them the best chance of survival. The other champions were already making their selections. Razor Wing Death, the Zephyrian warrior, was a terrifying insectoid creature with 4 arms and razor-sharp wing edges. It had chosen dual curved blades that gleamed with some kind of poison. The combat prism was a crystalline being that had shaped itself into a form covered with sharp edges and spikes. Crushing Depths resembled a massive humanoid shark with arms like steel cables. Pure Destruction was a vaguely humanoid energy form that crackled with barely contained power. Jake walked past the alien weapons and armor, ignoring the surprised looks from the other champions. He selected nothing but a simple pair of combat boots and stripped down to basic pants and a sleeveless shirt. The other champions exchanged glances that might have been confusion or amusement. "Human," hissed Razorwing Death, its voice like grinding metal. "You choose no weapons, no armor. Do you seek death?" Jake looked at the insectoid warrior calmly. "I choose to fight as nature made me." The combat prism's crystalline form flashed, with colors fascinating. The human appears to have accepted defeat before combat begins. Crushing Depths circled Jake like a predator studying prey. "Your soft flesh will tear easily. Your bones will break like twigs. You should have stayed on your small world." Pure Destruction crackled with energy. "The patterns of your consciousness show fear mixed with determination. An interesting combination, but insufficient for survival." Jake said nothing in response. He had learned long ago that words were wasted on beings who had already decided his fate. Instead, he focused on his breathing, on the feel of his muscles, on the weight of his body. He thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who were counting on him to succeed, where failure seemed certain. Above in the observation deck, the alien delegates were placing bets on how long each champion would survive. The Alpha Kreshwan was the overwhelming favorite, with most estimating it would kill all 5 other champions within minutes. Jake was given the shortest survival time. Most aliens believed he would die within seconds of the combat beginning. "The human has chosen suicide," Queen Zixtheta buzzed to her companions. "Perhaps it is a cultural tradition to die bravely rather than live in shame." Counselor Prism 7's form shifted to a deep blue. The Vortani Collective observes that the human shows no signs of enhanced genetic modification or cybernetic implants. It appears to be completely natural, completely unmodified. Admiral Deep Current Flowing suit bubbled with what might have been laughter. The Nereid Federation finds this amusing. The human brings nothing to combat except flesh and bone. It will be consumed quickly. The Lumina delegation pulsed in unison. The consciousness patterns remain stable despite approaching death. Curious behavior for a species that claims intelligence. Warlord Kreshtar stood again, his voice carrying across the observation deck. Let this be a lesson to all who would challenge the natural order. The strong devour the weak, and the weak should know their place. Down in the arena, the Alpha Kreshwan was released from its cage. The creature immediately began stalking around the combat space, its massive head turning to track each champion. Its yellow eyes fixed on Jake for a moment, and the human felt the weight of a predator's attention. The creature's mouth opened, slightly, revealing rows of teeth like daggers. The arena's announcement system crackled to life. Champions, take your positions. Combat begins in 60 seconds. Jake walked to his assigned starting position, his bare feet silent on the sandy floor. Around him, the other champions readied their weapons and prepared for battle. The Alpha Kreshwan crouched low, its claws extended and its muscles coiled for the attack dot in the observation deck. The alien delegates leaned forward in anticipation. They were about to witness what they believed would be the shortest combat trial in galactic history. The soft, weak human would be torn apart in seconds, and then the real battle would begin between the true predators. None of them suspected that they were about to learn something terrifying about the species they had so casually dismissed. The combat began with a sound that shook the entire station. The Alpha Kreshwan's roar echoed through the arena as it charged forward. Its massive claws extended and its jaws open wide enough to swallow a human whole. Jake Morrison stood perfectly still for a moment, watching 12 feet of pure death racing toward him at incredible speed. At the last possible second, Jake moved. He didn't run or dodge wildly like the alien delegates expected. Instead, he stepped to the side with fluid precision, letting the creature's momentum carry it past him. The Alpha Kreshwan's claws missed his chest by inches, and Jake could feel the heat radiating from its massive body. In the observation deck, Queen Zixtheta's antennae twitched with surprise. The human avoided the first attack. Unexpected, but ultimately meaningless. Counselor Prism 7's crystalline form flashed yellow. Statistical analysis shows this was likely random chance. The human will not be so fortunate again. The other champions had scattered when the Alpha Kreshwan charged, each seeking their own advantage in the chaos. Razorwing Death took to the air, its four arms wielding poisoned blades as it circled overhead. The combat prism had positioned itself near the arena wall, its sharp edges gleaming as it prepared to strike. Crushing Depths moved with surprising speed for such a massive creature, its shark-like form cutting through the air. Pure Destruction crackled with energy as it floated above the combat, waiting for the right moment to unleash its power. The Alpha Kreshwan spun around with terrifying speed, its tail whipping through the air where Jake had been standing. The human had already moved again, staying just out of reach of the creature's attacks. His movements were economical, wasting no energy on unnecessary motion. Admiral Deep Current Flowing's water suit bubbled with confusion. The human continues to evade. How is this possible? Warlord Kreshtar leaned forward in his seat. The Alpha Kreshwan is toying with its prey. It enjoys the hunt before the kill. But Jake wasn't just running. He was studying the creature, learning its patterns, understanding how it moved and attacked. Every dodge taught him something new about his opponent. The Alpha Kreshwan favored its right claw in close combat. It had a slight blind spot on its left side. Its massive size made it powerful but also slower to change direction. The first real blood was drawn when Razorwing Death dove from above, its poisoned blades aimed at Jake's back. The human heard the whistle of air through chitin wings and rolled forward, causing the Zephyrian warrior to crash into the sand where he had been standing. Jake's roll brought him within reach of the insectoid creature, and he struck out with his fist, connecting solidly with one of its compound eyes. The Zephyrian warrior shrieked in pain and rage. Green fluid leaking from its damaged eye, it lashed out with all four arms, but Jake was already moving away, having learned what he needed to know. The creature's exoskeleton was hard but not unbreakable. Its eyes were vulnerable. Its wings made noise when it moved. The combat prism chose that moment to attack, its crystalline form reshaping itself into a spike-covered wheel that rolled across the arena at high speed. Jake saw it coming and jumped, using the creature's own momentum against it. He landed on top of the rolling crystal and rode it like a surfboard for several yards. Before jumping off and letting it crash into the arena wall, the alien delegates were no longer making casual observations. They were leaning forward, trying to understand what they were seeing. The human was not just surviving. He was fighting back effectively against creatures that should have killed him instantly. Crushing Depths attacked next, its massive arms reaching for Jake with crushing force. The human ducked under the first grab, stepped inside the creature's reach, and struck upward with his elbow. The blow connected with the soft tissue under the Nereid's jaw, and the creature stumbled backward, shaking its head in confusion. Pure destruction finally joined the battle, sending bolts of energy crackling toward Jake. The human moved in an unpredictable pattern, making it impossible for the Lumina warrior to get a clean shot. When one energy bolt came too close, Jake actually used Crushing Depths as a shield, causing the Nereid to cry out in pain as the energy seared its flesh. The Alpha Kreshwan had been watching this display with growing frustration. It roared again and charged toward the cluster of fighters, its massive claws ready to tear through anything in its path. Jake saw the creature coming and did something that shocked every alien in the observation deck. He didn't run away from the Alpha Kreshwan. He ran toward it. The two collided in the center of the arena, and for a moment it seemed like the human had finally made a fatal mistake. The Alpha Kreshwan's claws raked across Jake's shoulder, tearing through his shirt and drawing blood. The alien delegates expected to see the human torn apart, but instead they saw something that changed everything. Jake's eyes had changed. The calm, measured expression was gone, replaced by something primal and dangerous. Blood ran down his arm from the claw marks, but he didn't seem to notice or care. He looked up at the Alpha Kreshwan with the expression of a predator that had just been challenged. The Lumina delegation pulsed with sudden alarm. First Light's voice carried a note of confusion. The human's consciousness patterns have shifted. This is not the same being that entered the arena. Counselor Prism 7's form flashed through several colors rapidly. Impossible! The human showed no signs of enhanced capabilities. How can its patterns change so dramatically? Jake moved differently now. His previous movements had been defensive, focused on survival and study. Now he moved with purpose, with aggression, with the fluid grace of something that had been born to hunt. He struck the Alpha Kreshwan in the knee with surgical precision, causing the massive creature to stumble. The Alpha Kreshwan swiped at him again, but Jake was no longer where the creature expected him to be. He had moved inside its reach, targeting pressure points and vulnerable areas with strikes that seemed to know exactly where to hit. For maximum effect. Queen Zix Theta S wings buzzed with agitation. What is happening to the human? Its behavior has changed completely. Admiral Deep Current Flowing's water suit cycled through colors rapidly. The Nereid Federation has never seen such a transformation. The human appears to be accessing some kind of combat mode. Warlord Kreshtar was no longer lounging in his seat. The massive Soros warrior was standing, his yellow eyes fixed on the battle below. That is not possible. Humans are soft creatures, weak and slow. They cannot simply become predators. But that was exactly what Jake had become. The other champions had stopped their own attacks to watch as the human systematically began dismantling the Alpha Kreshwan's defenses. Every strike was precise, every movement calculated to cause maximum damage while avoiding the creature's counterattacks. The Alpha Kreshwan, apex predator of a dozen worlds, began to show something it had never experienced before. Its roars became more desperate, its attacks more frenzied. For the first time in its existence, it was fighting something that fought back with equal savagery. Jake's shoulder was bleeding freely now, but the pain seemed to have awakened something in him that the aliens had never suspected existed. He moved around the massive creature like a dancer, striking nerve clusters and joint connections with the precision of a surgeon and the power of a sledgehammer. The observation deck had fallen silent except for the sounds of alien breathing and the bubbling of Nereid water suits. Every delegate was staring at the arena floor, trying to understand what they were witnessing. The human they had dismissed as weak and helpless was systematically destroying the most feared predator in known space, and he was doing it with nothing but his bare hands and a level of violence that none of them had imagined possible. The arena had become a slaughterhouse, and Jake Morrison was the butcher. Blood covered his hands and arms, some of it his own, but most of it belonging to the creatures that had thought him weak. The other champions lay broken around the sandy floor, their bodies twisted in ways that spoke of methodical destruction rather than random violence. Razor-wing Death had been the first to fall after Jake's transformation. The Zephyrian warrior had tried to use its speed advantage, diving from above with poisoned blades extended. Jake had caught one of its forearms in mid-strike, twisted until bones snapped, and then used the creature's own blade to open its throat. The insectoid warrior had died gurgling green fluid, its compound eyes wide with disbelief. The combat prism had lasted longer, its crystalline form reshaping itself constantly to avoid Jake's attacks. But the human had adapted, learning to read the patterns in its transformations. When the Vortani warrior tried to form spikes to impale him, Jake had grabbed two of the crystal projections and twisted them against each other until the entire structure shattered. The pieces still twitched on the arena floor, their inner light fading slowly. Crushing Depths had proven more challenging due to its massive size and aquatic adaptations. The Nereid champion had grappled with Jake for several minutes, its steel cable arms trying to crush the human's ribs. But Jake had found the pressure points in its water suit, rupturing the life support systems that kept it breathing. As the creature drowned in the station's atmosphere, Jake had methodically broken its arms at each joint, working from the shoulders down to the fingertips. Pure destruction had been the most dangerous opponent before the Alpha Kreshwan. Its energy form could have killed Jake instantly if any of its attacks had connected cleanly. But the human had used the arena's metal walls to ground the electrical strikes, and when the Lumina warrior came close enough for a physical contact, Jake had somehow grabbed its energy matrix and squeezed until the coherent patterns collapsed. The Lumina's death scream had been like static electricity across every nerve ending in the station. Now only the Alpha Kreshwan remained, and it was no longer the confident apex predator that had entered the arena. Jake had systematically destroyed its confidence along with its body. The creature's right arm hung useless at its side, the shoulder joint dislocated and the muscles torn. Deep gouges ran along its flanks where Jake's fingers had found gaps in its armored scales. One of its eyes was swollen shut, and green blood dripped from its ruined snout. The alien delegates in the observation deck watched in paralyzed horror as Jake stalked his wounded prey around the arena. This was not combat as they understood it. This was predation at its most primitive and efficient level. The human moved with the patience of a hunter who knew his quarry was already dead. Queen Zixtheta's entire body trembled, her wings making rapid clicking sounds that indicated extreme distress. This cannot be real. Humans are supposed to be peaceful, civilized beings. They eat plants and small animals. They build cities and art and music. Counselor Prism 7's crystalline form had shifted to a deep black color that indicated complete system shock. The Vortani Collective is accessing all available data on human evolution. The files indicate they developed on a death world. They hunted creatures called mammoths and saber-toothed cats. They survived ice ages and volcanic eruptions. They conquered their entire planet through violence. Admiral Deep Current Flowing's water suit was cycling through colors so rapidly it looked like a broken display screen. The Nereid Federation overlooked crucial information. Humans did not evolve as prey animals. They evolved as persistence hunters. They would chase their prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion, then tear it apart with primitive tools. The Lumina delegation was pulsing in patterns that indicated complete terror. Second Light's voice was barely coherent. The consciousness patterns are unlike anything in our database. This being thinks like a predator from the darkest epochs of galactic history. It does not see other creatures as potential allies or enemies. It sees them as prey. Warlord Kreshtar stood frozen at the observation window, his massive hands pressed against the transparent aluminum. The sight of his Alpha Kreshwan being systematically dismantled had shattered everything he thought he knew about the galactic hierarchy. Impossible. The Alpha Kreshwan is the ultimate predator. It cannot be defeated by a soft-skinned mammal. But defeat was exactly what was happening on the arena floor below. Jake had cornered the wounded creature against the far wall, and now he was moving in for the kill. The Alpha Kreshwan tried one last desperate charge. Its remaining good arm extended in a final attempt to tear the human apart. Jake stepped aside almost casually, grabbed the creature's arm as it passed, and used its own momentum to slam it face first into the metal wall. The impact made a sound like a gong, and the Alpha Kreshwan slumped to the ground. Dazed and bleeding, the human stood over his fallen opponent, blood dripping from his wounds onto the sand. For a moment, the entire station was silent except for the Alpha Kreshwan's labored breathing. Then Jake reached down and grabbed the creature's massive head in both hands. The delegates knew what was coming next, but none of them could look away. This was their first glimpse of what humanity really was beneath the veneer of civilization, and the sight burned itself into their memories like acid. Jake twisted the Alpha Kreshwan's head with mechanical precision. The sound of vertebrae separating echoed through the arena like breaking branches. The creature's body went limp instantly, its yellow eyes staring sightlessly at the ceiling. The human stood up slowly, wiping his bloodied hands on his torn pants. He looked up at the observation deck with eyes that no longer seemed entirely sane. When his gaze swept across the alien delegates, each one felt like they were being evaluated as potential threats, or prey. Queen Zix Theta made a sound like glass breaking. What have we done? What have we awakened? Counselor Prism 7's form was flickering between colors so rapidly it hurt to look at. The human is not finished. It is still in predator mode. It sees us as potential targets. Jake began walking toward the arena exit, his bare feet silent on the blood-soaked sand. His movements were still fluid and dangerous, like a hunting cat that had not yet satisfied its appetite. The wounds on his shoulder and arms seemed to bother him not at all. Admiral. Deep current flowing his water suit made sounds like a damaged filtration system. The Nereid Federation must recalculate all threat assessments immediately. If one human can destroy an Alpha Kreshwan and 4 champions, what could their entire species accomplish? The Lumina delegation was pulsing in perfect synchronization. Now, their individual consciousness patterns merging in response to extreme stress. The implications are terrifying. We assumed humans were weak because they appeared physically inferior. We never considered that they might be optimized for a different kind of warfare entirely. Warlord Kreshtar slowly sank back into his seat, his yellow eyes never leaving Jake's form as the human disappeared through the arena exit. The Sorrow's Empire has made a grave error. We judge strength by size and natural weapons. But this human has shown us that intelligence combined with killer instinct is far more dangerous than claws or fangs. The observation deck remained silent for several minutes after Jake left. Each delegation was processing what they had witnessed, trying to understand the implications for their own species and the galaxy as a whole. They had come to Kepler Station expecting to judge humanity and find them wanting. Instead, they had learned that humans were not the harmless newcomers they appeared to be. They were predators wearing the mask of civilization, and that mask could be removed with terrifying ease. The combat trial was over, but the real horror was just beginning as the aliens realized they would now have to return to the negotiating table with the knowledge of what humans were, truly capable of when pushed to their limits. The diplomatic chamber felt different when the delegations reconvened 6 hours after the arena combat. The same circular room that had buzzed with alien confidence and human uncertainty now carried an atmosphere of fear and cautious respect. Jake Morrison sat beside Ambassador Lisa Hayes at the human table, freshly showered and wearing a clean uniform. Medical nanobots had sealed his wounds, leaving only faint scars on his shoulder and arms as reminders of what had transpired. But the aliens remembered. Everything. Queen Zixtida's antennae twitched constantly as she spoke, a nervous habit that indicated extreme stress among Zephyrians. Her voice carried none of the dismissive arrogance from the previous day. The Zephyrian Hive wishes to formally apologize to the human delegation for our earlier lack of respect. We clearly underestimated your species' capabilities. Counselor. Prism 7's crystalline form had remained a subdued gray color since entering the chamber. The Vortani Collective has spent the last 6 hours analyzing recorded data from the combat trial. Our previous assessments of human physiology and psychology were catastrophically inadequate. We request immediate access to corrected biological databases. Admiral Deep Current Flowing's water suit bubbled nervously as he shifted in his chair. The Nereid Federation offers immediate and unconditional alliance with Earth. We recognize that any species capable of such combat effectiveness would make valuable allies and dangerous enemies. The Lumina delegation pulsed in perfect unison. Their individual consciousness patterns still merged from the shock of witnessing Pure Destruction's defeat. The Lumina Collective has observed consciousness patterns that challenge our understanding of sentient evolution. Humans possess a dual nature that we fail to detect. Beneath your civilized exterior lies something far more primitive and dangerous. Oh. Eyes turned to Warlord Kreshtar as he stood slowly. The massive Sorrow's leader looked like he had aged years in the past few hours. His usual confident posture was gone, replaced by the careful movements of someone who had learned to recognize a superior predator. The Soros Empire formally withdraws all challenges to human worthiness. We offer full military alliance and request permission to study human combat techniques. Ambassador Hayes glanced at Jake before responding. The commander sat quietly, his hands folded on the table, but something had changed in his eyes. They held a depth of awareness that hadn't been there before, as if the arena combat had awakened parts of his mind that had been dormant. The human delegation appreciates these generous offers. However, we must discuss terms that ensure mutual benefit rather than domination. Queen Zixtida's wings rustled with agitation. Domination? The Zephyrian Hive seeks only to avoid becoming. Pray, your species has demonstrated that individual humans possess capabilities that rival our finest warriors. What must we offer to ensure peaceful coexistence? Jake spoke for the first time since entering the chamber, his voice calm and measured. You're making the same mistake you made before. You're assuming that what you saw in the arena represents normal human behavior. It doesn't. Counselor Prism 7's form flashed with confusion. Clarification requested. Are you stating that your combat performance was artificially enhanced? No, Jake replied simply. I'm saying that most humans never access those capabilities because we don't need to. We've built a civilization that allows us to be peaceful, creative, and cooperative. The violence you witnessed is what happens when that civilization is threatened or when we're pushed into survival mode. Admiral Deep Current Flowing suit cycled through several colors as he processed this information. The implications are staggering. If that level of violence represents emergency capability rather than standard operation, what does this suggest about human military potential? Lisa took over the explanation, her diplomatic training helping her navigate the delicate situation. Humans evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill us. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, predators, diseases, other humans. We survived by becoming adaptable, persistent, and when necessary, absolutely ruthless. But we also survived by learning to work together, to share resources, and to build communities. The Lumina delegation pulsed with growing understanding. The dual nature explains the consciousness patterns we observed. Humans possess both predatory instincts and cooperative behaviors in the same consciousness matrix. This should be impossible according to known evolutionary principles. Jake leaned forward slightly. It's not impossible. It's just rare. Most species evolved to fill one ecological niche. Humans filled all of them. We were persistence hunters, who could chase prey for days. We were pack hunters who could coordinate complex strategies. We were scavengers who could survive on anything. We were tool users who could adapt to any environment. And when we ran out of things to hunt on our own planet, we started hunting each other. Warlord Kreshtar's voice was barely above a whisper. How did your species survive if you were constantly at war with each other? Because we learned that cooperation was more effective than constant conflict, Lisa explained. We discovered that we could accomplish more by working together than by trying to destroy each other. But the capacity for violence never went away. It's still there, sleeping under the surface, waiting for when it's needed. Queen Zixtheta made a sound like breaking glass. The Zephyrian hive must ask a direct question. If humanity chose to expand aggressively across the galaxy, what could stop you? Jake was quiet for a moment, considering his answer carefully. Ourselves? The same evolutionary traits that make us dangerous also make us moral. We understand suffering because we've experienced it. We value cooperation because it's kept us alive. Most humans have no desire to conquer or destroy other species. Most humans? Counselor Prism 7's form flashed red with concern. Every species has individuals who don't represent the majority, Lisa said diplomatically. The difference is that human civilization is designed to control and redirect those impulses toward productive purposes. We channel aggression into sports, competition, and achievement rather than warfare. Admiral Deep Current Flowing Suit made nervous, bubbling sounds. But if your civilization failed? If humans reverted to their primitive state? Jake's expression grew distant, as if he were looking at something the others couldn't see. Then, you would discover why humans conquered their planet while most other species barely survived on theirs. We don't just fight to win. We fight to ensure that our enemies can never threaten us again. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. These aliens had spent millennia building their civilizations on the assumption that intelligence and violence were opposing forces. They had never encountered a species that had perfected both. The Lumina delegation pulsed with patterns that indicated deep thought. The Lumina Collective wishes to propose a new framework for these negotiations. Rather than discussing what humans want from us, perhaps we should discuss what we can offer to ensure that humans never feel threatened. Enough to abandon their peaceful tendencies, Warlord Kreshtar nodded slowly. The Soros Empire agrees. We have seen what happens when humans are pushed to violence. We prefer to see what happens when they are given reasons to remain peaceful. Over the next several hours, the negotiations proceeded with unprecedented speed and cooperation. The aliens offered technology transfers, trade agreements, territorial concessions, and military support with a generosity that would have seemed impossible the day before. Every proposal was designed to benefit humanity while ensuring that Earth had no reason to view the other species as threats. Jake watched the proceedings with quiet satisfaction. The arena combat had been brutal and necessary, but this was what he had really been fighting for. Not dominance, but respect. Not fear, but understanding. As the formal treaties were signed and sealed, Queen Zixtheta sent a priority message to the Zephyrian homeworld. Her words would echo through the galactic communication networks within hours, reaching every species and every world. Classification updated for species designated human, she transmitted. Previous assessments were dangerously inadequate. Humans are not prey animals. They are not typical predators. They are something entirely new in galactic evolution. Intelligent persistence hunters with advanced technology and cooperative social structures. Recommend immediate diplomatic outreach and defensive alliance offers. Under no circumstances should humans be provoked or threatened. They are not our enemies, but we must ensure they never become them. As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth with treaties that would transform humanity's place in the galaxy, Jake stood once more at the observation window overlooking the arena. The blood had been cleaned away, the bodies removed. But the memory of what had happened there would live forever in the minds of every alien who had witnessed it. They had come to Kepler Station as supplicants, hoping to be accepted into the galactic community. They were leaving as equals, with the respect and alliance of 5 major alien civilizations. And all because sometimes, when civilization was threatened, it was necessary to remind the galaxy that humans had earned their place at the top of Earth's food chain through millions of years of evolution.